Hey everyone, it's time to come on close for a minute. Today is the fourth Sunday of Advent, and as is our recent tradition here at First Pres, it's the Sunday that we pass the liturgical baton to our children to hear the story of Christmas told pageant style. And this year, we've gone virtual with our pageant, and so today you've been invited into the homes of some of our young families to hear the story of Jesus' incarnation told again. And today, we're excited to hear the story of Christmas taken from the delightful children's Bible called the Jesus Storybook Bible. This Bible is filled with some of the most essential stories from the Bible, and its poetry and its artwork help even the youngest child know the love of God for us in Jesus. But look, if you've been around the Christian block before, you've heard today's story before. It's the same story that we tell every year. Shepherds, wise men, angels, a baby, a stable, and you're thinking, gee, isn't there something new to say this year, like especially this year? But children's pageants, whether in person or virtual, aren't about telling you a story that's new. It's about telling you a story that's old, a story that is supposed to seep into our bones and simply be part of who we are as Christians, even in 2020. Here at First Pres, we make a vow as a church at each child's baptism to teach them the contours of Christian faith, and most importantly, to teach them the stories of our faith, so stories like this one can become part of their spiritual identity. Christmas pageants here are an annual exercise in storytelling by our children. And today we get to hear our children retell the story that our ancient ancestors in faith told as they huddled in catacombs in ancient Rome, fearful of the Roman Empire. It's the same story that has been spread from one corner of the globe to the other. And while it is not new, it is vital to our faith. And so today's pageant is extremely important. So welcome to our living rooms. Welcome to the fourth Sunday of Advent. And be sure to leave encouraging comments for all the children you see in the comment feed so their grown-ups can read it to them so they can be encouraged and connected to you. So, church, let us listen to the book that we love.
Everything was ready. A moment God touched me. Waiting here for seal at last. God was going to help it to work, just as He promised in the beginning. But how would He come? What would He be like? What would He do? Mountains would have bowed down. Trees would have roared. Trees would have clapped their hands. But He will hold His breath. Diamond snow falling. He came in. But when no one was looking, in the darkness He came.
There was a young girl who was engaged to a man named Joseph. Joseph was the great-great-great-great-grandson of King David. One morning, this girl was minding her own business when suddenly a great warrior of light appeared right there in her bedroom. He was Gabriel, and he was an angel, a special messenger from heaven. When she saw the tall, shining man standing there, Mary was frightened. "You don't need to be scared," Gabriel said. "God is very happy with you." Mary looked around to see if perhaps he was talking to someone else. "Mary," Gabriel said, and he laughed with such gladness that Mary's eyes filled with 7 tears. "Mary, you're going to have a baby, a little boy. You'll call him Jesus. He is God's own son. He's the one. He's the rescuer. The God who flung the planets into space and kept them whirling around and around, the God who made the universe with just a word, the one who could do anything at all, was making himself small. and coming down as a baby. Wait, God sending a baby to rescue the world? But it's too wonderful, Mary said as she felt her heart beating hard. How can it be true? Gabriel asked, is anything too wonderful for God? So Mary trusted God more than what her eyes could see, and she believed. I am God's servant, she said. Whatever God says, I will do.
Sure enough, it was just as the angel had said. 9 months later, Mary was almost ready to have her baby. Now, Mary and Joseph had to take a trip to Bethlehem, the town King David was from. But when they reached the little town, they found every room was full. Every bed was taken.
I sure hope that we can find a place today. Me too. I guess they don't got any more rooms.
Where would they stay? Soon, Mary's baby would come. They couldn't find anywhere except an old, tumble-down stable. So they stayed where the cows and the donkeys and the horses stayed.
And there in the stable, amongst the chickens and the donkeys and the cows, in the quiet of the night, God gave the world his wonderful gift, the baby that would change the world, his baby son. Mary and Joseph wrapped him up to keep him warm. They made a soft bed of straw and used the animal's feeding trough as his cradle. And they gazed in wonder at God's great gift, wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. Mary and Joseph named him Jesus, Emmanuel, which means God has come to live with us, because of course he had.
That same night, and amongst the other stars, suddenly a bright new star appeared. Of all the stars in the dark, vaulted heavens, this one shone clearer. It blazed in the night and made the other stars look pale beside it. God put it there when his baby son was born to be like a spotlight, shining on him, lighting up the darkness, showing people the way to him.
You see, God was like a new daddy. He couldn't keep the news to himself. He'd been waiting all these long years for this moment. And now, he wanted to tell everyone.
So he pulled out all of the stops. He sent an angel to tell Mary the good news. He put a special star in the sky to show where his boy was. And now he was going to send a big choir of angels to sing his happy song to the world.
Here, he's here, go and see him, he's here.
He's here, he's here.
Go and see him, he's here.
Now, where would you send your splendid choir? To a big concert hall, maybe? Or a palace, perhaps? God sent his to a little hillside, outside a little town, in the middle of the night. He sent all of those angels to sing for a raggedy old bunch of shepherds watching their sheep outside Bethlehem. In those days, remember, people used to laugh at shepherds and say they were smelly and call them other rude names, which I can't possibly mention here. You see, people thought shepherds were nobodies, just scruffy riffraff. But God must have thought shepherds were very important indeed, because they're the ones he chose to tell the good news to first. That night, some shepherds were out in the open fields, warming themselves by a campfire, when suddenly the sheep darted. They were frightened by something. The olive trees rustled. What was that? A wing beat?
They turned around. Standing in front of them was a huge warrior of light, blazing in the darkness. "Don't be afraid of me," the bright shining man said. "I haven't come to hurt you. I've come to bring you happy news for everyone everywhere. Today in David's town in Bethlehem, God's son has been born. You can go and see him. He's sleeping in a manger." Behind the angel, they saw a strange glowing cloud, except it wasn't a cloud. It was angels. Troops and troops of angels, armed with light. And they were singing a beautiful song. "Glory to God be fame and honor and all hoorays." Then, as quickly as they appeared, the angels left. The shepherds stamped out their fire, left their sheep, raced down the grassy hill, through the gates of Bethlehem, down the narrow cobble streets, through a courtyard, down some steep steps, past an inn, round a corner, through a hedge, until at last they reached.
They caught their breath.
They caught their breath.
Then quietly,
Quietly,
they tiptoed inside.
they tiptoed inside.
They knelt on the dirt floor.
Knelt in the dirt floor.
They had heard about this promised child,
Promised child.
and now he was here,
And now he's here.
Heaven's son,
Heaven's son,
the maker of the stars,
maker and the star.
a baby
A baby,
sleeping in his mother's arms.
mother's son.
This baby
This baby,
would be like that bright star
the bright star,
shining in the sky that night.
inside that night.
A light
A light
to light up
to light up
the whole world,
the whole world,
chasing away darkness,
chasing away in darkness,
helping people to see.
helping the people to see.
And the darker the night got,
The darker the night got,
the brighter
brighter
the star.
would shine.
Far away in the east, 3 clever men saw the very same star. The star that God had put in the sky when Jesus was born. They knew it was a sign. A baby king had been born. They had been waiting for this star. They knew it would come. "He's here," they shouted. "He's here." And I'm sure if you'd been there, you'd have heard them laughing and dancing and singing until the sun came up. At dawn, they packed up their camels and wrapped gifts for the baby. They brought their most precious treasures of all, frankincense, gold, and myrrh. Special, sparkly, lovely smelling, gleaming things, just right for a king.
The 3 wise men. Actually, if you met them, you would have thought they were kings because they were so rich and clever and important looking. Set off. They rode their camels across endless deserts, up steep, steep mountains, down into deep, deep valleys, through raging rivers, over grassy plains. Night and day, day and night, for hours that turned into days, that turned into weeks, that turned into months, and months until at last they reached.
Jerusalem was by far the most important city for miles around. As anyone can tell you, that's where palaces would be, and kings were born in palaces. So that's where they went. They went to see King Herod. Surely he'd know where this baby was. But he didn't. In fact, he didn't like the sound of a new king. It made him cross. And he didn't want anyone to be king except him.
But Herod's advisors told the 3 wise men what was written in their books, what God had said about the baby king. Go to Bethlehem, that's where you'll find him. Suddenly, the star they had seen in the east started moving again, showing them the way. So 3 wise men followed the star out of the big city, along the road, and into the little town of Bethlehem. They followed the star through the streets of Bethlehem. Out of the nice part of town, through the not-so-nice part of town, into the really not-so-nice-at-all part of town. Down a little dirt track until it stopped right over a little house. But wait, it wasn't a palace. There weren't any guards or servants or flags or red carpets or trumpets or anything. Did they get it wrong? Or was this what God meant?
Sure enough, in that little house there, sitting on the mother's knee, they found him. The baby king. The 3 men knelt before the little king. They took off their rich royal turbans and gleaming golden crowns. They bowed before their noble heads to the ground and gave their sparkling treasures. The journey that had begun so many centuries before had led 3 wise men there, to a little town, to a little house, to a little child. To the king God had promised David all those years before. But this child was a new kind of king. Though he was the Prince of Heaven, he had become poor. Though he was the mighty God, he had become a helpless baby. This king hadn't come to be the boss. He had come to be a servant.
I'm Gwen Oliver and I played cow. I'm Lauren Oliver. I played out for the sheep. I am Jack.
Alice Field.
Gideon Field.
Hi, I'm Thomas Halligan.
Ryan.
And Miriam Hester. And by Hester. Junior Higginson.
Calvin Novak. Eli Novak.
Axel Novak. Alma Novak. I'm Michael. Merry Christmas.
Adelaide Rossmesser.
Roger Rossmesser.
Ella Rossmesser.
Alyeska. I'm Seth. I'm Northern Beskovic.
Hi everyone, my name is Luke Wamba. Hi, I'm Owen Wamba.
I am Isabella. And I'm Sonia.